A serious dispute is brewing between the United States and Canada, threatening to upend decades of cooperation and trust along their famously peaceful border. The spark? British Columbia's controversial plan to impose a toll on American trucks traveling the long, isolated route to Alaska, a move that's ignited fierce debate on both sides. The Alaska Highway, stretching over 1,300 miles through rugged wilderness, has long been more than just a road. It's a lifeline for Alaskans, and a symbol of the close partnership between the two nations, built during World War II to connect communities and foster trade. But now, this vital artery is at the center of a growing conflict, as the proposed toll is seen as a direct response to new U.S. economic pressures. In early 2025, President Trump introduced a sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian goods, sending shockwaves through Canadian industries and straining the once-friendly relationship between Ottawa and Washington. British Columbia's Premier, David Eby, has defended the toll as a necessary measure, a bold statement that Canada will not simply accept economic pressure without fighting back. For many Canadians, it's a matter of national pride and economic survival. The U.S. reacted with outrage, especially in Alaska, where leaders and residents argue the toll threatens essential supplies, from groceries to fuel, and could isolate communities that depend on the highway. The dispute has escalated rapidly, with both sides exchanging threats and considering further actions that could inflict real economic pain. The world's longest peaceful border, once a symbol of stability, is now a flashpoint, reminding us how quickly alliances can shift when national interests collide. What began as a dispute over tariffs has now become a standoff over tolls, with real and immediate consequences for ordinary people who rely on cross-border trade and travel. Truck drivers face delays and uncertainty. Families in Alaska worry about rising prices and shortages, and businesses on both sides are caught in the crossfire, unsure of what the future holds. Political decisions made in distant capitals are now having a direct impact on daily life along the border, disrupting routines and sowing anxiety in communities that once took open borders for granted. As tensions rise and uncertainty grows, the future of this vital partnership hangs in the balance, with both nations facing tough choices about cooperation, sovereignty, and the true cost of a trade war. Canada's toll proposal is a direct response to President Trump's sweeping tariffs on Canadian products. The 25% tariff was a major blow, prompting outrage from Prime Minister Trudeau and business leaders nationwide. Premier Eby of British Columbia called it an economic war, insisting Canada must fight back. The toll is a strategic countermeasure, targeting Alaska's reliance on Canadian roads. Many Canadians see this as standing up for national sovereignty and fairness. The message, "If you hurt our economy, we'll defend our interests." The toll is designed to create leverage, not just to retaliate, but to force the U.S. to reconsider. Canadians are united in their resolve, no longer willing to be treated as a junior partner. The era of taking Canadian cooperation for granted is over. Friendship, they argue, must be built on mutual respect. President Trump's response was swift and aggressive, escalating the conflict rather than seeking compromise. Instead of opening the door to negotiation, his administration doubled down, making it clear that the United States would not back away from confrontation. Beyond tariffs, he floated extreme ideas, including military threats and even annexation, rhetoric that deepened the crisis. The language coming from Washington was more than just tough talk. It signaled a willingness to use every tool at America's disposal, even those rarely considered in modern disputes. U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska threatened to target British Columbia's tourism industry, a major economic driver. He argued that if Canada wouldn't cooperate, then its economy should feel the consequences, especially in sectors that rely heavily on American visitors. The Passenger Vessel Services Act requires cruise ships to stop in Canada, but Sullivan pushed for a waiver, bypassing BC ports. This move would allow cruise lines to skip Canadian stops entirely, rerouting lucrative tourism dollars away from British Columbia and into American ports. This would devastate BC's tourism sector, costing billions and thousands of jobs. Local businesses, from hotels to restaurants, would feel the impact almost immediately, threatening the livelihoods of countless families. The dispute has moved from quiet diplomacy to public threats and retaliation. What was once handled behind closed doors is now playing out in front of cameras, with both sides eager to show strength to their citizens. Trump's strategy is maximum pressure, betting the larger U.S. economy can force Canada to back down. The administration is wagering that economic pain will eventually bring Ottawa to the negotiating table on American terms. Both sides are locked in a dangerous cycle of escalation, each move provoking a stronger response. The tit-for-tat measures risk spiraling out of control, with neither country willing to be the first to blink. The once friendly neighbors are now locked in a high-stakes economic standoff. Decades of cooperation and trust are being tested as both nations dig in their heels, unwilling to show weakness. The risk of lasting damage to the relationship grows with every threat. If neither side steps back, the consequences could reshape the future of North American relations for years to come. In the face of mounting economic pressure, British Columbia responded with decisive action, introducing the Economic Stabilization, Tariff Response Act, a bold legislative move designed to protect the province's interests and send a clear message to its trading partners. This law grants the province the authority to impose tolls or fees on American trucks entering British Columbia if U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods persist, directly targeting the flow of cross-border trade that is vital to both economies. The act is designed as a flexible tool. No toll is imposed immediately, but the threat is real and ever-present, hanging over negotiations like a sword. It gives BC leverage without escalating the situation unnecessarily. Importantly, it's a temporary measure set to expire in 2027. This signals BC's intent to defend itself during this crisis, not to start a permanent trade war. The expiration date is a reminder that the province seeks resolution, not endless conflict. The law is a clear warning. BC will not be a passive victim. Instead, it is prepared to stand up for its workers, industries, and communities, showing resolve in the face of external threats. Provincial governments rarely take such bold steps in international disputes, underscoring just how serious and urgent the threat is perceived to be by BC's leaders. The act is a loaded gun on the negotiating table, meant to force the U.S. to reconsider its position and encourage a return to fair trade practices. If U.S. tariffs are lifted, the toll may never be enacted, and trade can continue to flow freely, benefiting both sides of the border. But if pressure continues, BC is prepared to act swiftly, using every tool at its disposal to protect its economy and send a message that it will not back down. The stakes for both economies are high, and BC is determined to protect its interests, standing firm in the hope that a fair and lasting solution can be found for all. The toll on the Alaska Highway could backfire, hurting both Canada and the U.S.-Alaska's supply chain relies on this route for critical goods, fresh food, medical supplies, and oil industry equipment. Higher transport costs would hit Alaskan consumers, raising prices in a state already facing high living costs. Alaska's leaders warn of severe disruption, urging a federal solution. But retaliation could devastate British Columbia's tourism industry if cruise ships bypass Canadian ports. Millions in tourism revenue and thousands of jobs are at risk in BC's coastal cities. Trade wars rarely have winners, each side's actions end up hurting their own people. The ripple effects could sour US-Canada relations for years. Both nations risk losing far more than they hope to gain. British Columbia's defiance has inspired a united Canadian response. The federal government imposed its own retaliatory tariffs, matching US measures. Ontario, Canada's industrial heartland, slapped a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the US, targeting another American vulnerability. Even the Yukon joined in, halting American products in government stores and limiting US business access to contracts. Provinces of all sizes are taking action, showing rare national unity. Premier Eby even banned alcohol from Republican-led states in BC liquor stores. Canada's message is clear: it will not be intimidated or divided. The American strategy now faces resistance on multiple fronts. As summer 2025 unfolds, the US-Canada relationship stands at a crossroads. Further escalation could trigger a full-blown trade war, harming businesses and consumers on both sides. Implementing a toll isn't simple. New infrastructure and legal battles may delay action. International agreements could complicate Canada's ability to impose tolls, leading to court challenges. A more hopeful path is de-escalation and negotiation, with both sides seeking a face-saving compromise. Most citizens and businesses want a resolution, not a prolonged conflict. This dispute tests one of the world's most successful partnerships. Generations of trust and cooperation are at risk. The coming weeks will determine if this is a temporary rift or the start of a new, more hostile era. The stakes for North America's future could not be higher.